Speaking about good wins, let's talk about our own personal wins, our movie theater experience wins. As I mentioned, I've been through many horror stories where people are talking. One time a biker, not sure if you know this, but a biker, we're watching Guardians of the Galaxy 2, me and my friend.
Okay.
And he was singing because like there's songs in this movie, it's very popular songs. He's singing every song that's popping up. And like midway through, I'm not enjoying this because he's like having his own party over here. And I go I whisper, hey, you're being a little loud. Can you turn it down? And like he blows up and like threatened to fight me in the movie theater afterwards. And so anyway, we have those horror stories, but we have much better experiences in the movie theater. Do you have one at the top of your head that you remember?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite movie theater experience I've ever had was at the Coolidge, I want to say in 2021. Every year they do this Lord of the Rings movie marathon where they show all three back to back to back, and with like a 30-minute break and then an hour break, and it's the extended edition, so you're there for we showed up at, I want to say 11 in the morning and left after midnight.
Yeah.
One of the coolest experiences I've ever had because, I never got the chance to see those in a theater as a kid, and to get to see them in a theater was so special, and to see it at the Coolidge was really special too, but to see it with everyone who's so dedicated and loves that franchise, like all the highs hit so much higher when everyone's there, and all the lows hit you so much harder when everyone else is there, and just like the atmosphere. I know the Mark Anastasio, the guy who's in charge of their special programming there, he showed up dressed as Gandalf, and it was such a great time. It was really one of the coolest movie theater experiences I've ever had.
Shout out to Mark. We've actually had Mark on the podcast, and we've had him numerous times on for WBZ News Radio, and great guy. I love shout out to the Coolidge Corner Theater too, because they're always doing I say gimmicks in the best possible way, but they're always doing gimmicks to make each theater going experience an event.
Yeah.
Most recently they had the Tingler, and so they actually installed like those vibrating like motors below the seats, and so and when the movie came out, it was like a 1940s or 50s or 60s movie, I forget.
It's the first 4D movie.
Yeah, it was like one of the first 4D like experience, and so back then they actually had like motors too, and so they brought back that vintage theatrical experience. And so shout out to the Coolidge for doing stuff like that, because I think more people nowadays need an excuse, need an event to go to movie theater to watch a movie.
Yeah, and I love just like repertory stuff. I mean, one of my other favorite experiences I had this year was last year I saw Interstellar for the first time. I'd never seen it, and partially it was because I wanted to see it in a theater, and it got an IMAX re-release, and I went with my friend, and it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had, just to be around just like a movie that was so made for IMAX, and just like your seat is shaking, and you can feel the sound. It was amazing.
That's cool. I actually I regret, because I have another friend from high school who watched big Lord of the Rings fan, and he watched. I wasn't into wizards at the time, or like that kind of realm of Middle Earth. And so I watched it after the fact, like on DVD, and they're great movies. So that's one regret I have, not watching it in the movie theater. So that's awesome that you got to experience that in a whole like kind of day events. One memory of mine, one of my favorite movie experiences in my life was with my dad. Have you seen the movie or heard the movie Kung Pao, Enter the Fist?
I have not, no.
So basically this guy, he took an old like kung fu martial arts movie from like the 70s, and it's all in Mandarin, and he overdubbed it and spliced it and like put himself in the movie and like created extra scenes, and pretty much like how dubs are where like the mouth is moving but the words catch up differently. The whole movie is like that. Even his like this white guy who's like this martial arts like the chosen one, and so his voice is kind of like he's speaking English but his mouth is just all gibberish. Anyway, so it's a very like slapsticky, ridiculous movie, and it's so stupid but it's so good. It has a cult following. But my dad and I watched that in movie theater. It came out in 2002, so I was 12, and my dad and I were busting up laughing. Like those were one of the earliest movies I remember, just like not being able to catch my breath and just like side hurting, and being there with my dad who was having just as much fun. Like that's a core memory, and one reason why I can't wait to go to the movie theaters with my daughter when she's old enough. Just like you just can't recreate those moments with family or friends. So that's one like best movie theater experiences I've had in my life.
Yeah. I was thinking, well, to harken it back to Saltburn, I was going to say that was one of the most. It was good because it was just so bizarre. Like seeing that movie and just like what it is, it's just crazy. But the audience, when I saw it at the AMC on Boston Common, and the audience was so into it, and like that scene, like the whole crowd is like, oh, you know, everyone's just like everyone kind of knew what was everyone was about to happen, and just like the reaction to just anytime something absurd was happening, like it was one of those classic theater experiences where just like the crowd was so into it, everyone was reacting like, oh my god, like people were just yelling that out, and it was one of I was like, shh, because like I was feeling the same thing too. I'm like, what am I watching right now? You know?
So did you know going in that there was a scene like that? Because
yes. I did not know when it was going to happen, and I knew there were a couple things that I knew were going to happen, and I did not know when. Yeah. And then when like they were about to happen, I was like, "Oh my god, is this it?" And I was like, "Well, here we go.
This is happening." And no, the thing is, I had heard there was a scene with a bathtub. That's all I knew going in, and I watched it at home, and literally like mouth agape, like for a while. Like I'm like, oh. It's like I don't know what that feeling is. Just like inside of you is trying to burst, and like you just can't believe what you're watching. But such an iconic scene. That's definitely something that I probably should have experienced in movie theater too. Just watch other people.
One of my favorite reviews I saw of that movie was someone said that like this movie was written so that Emerald Fennell could say for her next movie, "From the Twisted Mind of Emerald Fennell," because let me tell you, that movie was twisted.
That's crazy. That was a nuts movie. Have you seen The Talented Mr. Ripley?
I have not. Damon? I watched the TV show that just came out with Andrew Scott, which is
I didn't know they had a TV show.
It's essentially the same thing, except it's all in this. It's in this beautiful black and white on Netflix, and Andrew Scott is great. Yeah, but I do know it's like basically the same thing. Right?
Yeah, so that's what I compared it to. Like it's like a Talented Mr. Ripley meets like I don't know what other disgusting movie you can combine it with, but Matt Damon, Jude Law are fantastic in that. So that's what reminded me of that because he's impersonating or like mimicking other people to fit in, and then eventually like kind of take advantage of the situation. Another movie that I remember having a great time in high school was Superbad.
Oh yeah,
in 2007. So I saw the midnight screening. It just came out, so it was like Thursday at midnight. My friends in high school, we all go, and that's another movie where like. The whole theater was erupting. Like every 5 seconds, 10 seconds, there's a hilarious joke. And there's just joke after joke after joke. It's so funny. And that's a movie where I remember, like, I've never rocked back and forth in my movies in the theater seat before. But I remember just like almost jumping up with laughter, like back and forth. Everybody's having a great time. Arms are flailing. Like that's another movie that was so great to watch with people my age. Yeah. Perfect time for myself. So that's another one that sticks out of my head.
We need more comedies like that.
Yeah.
You know, the closest that I've had to an experience like that in a theater was actually watching No Hard Feelings. My friends and I went to see that, the Jennifer Lawrence movie. Yeah. And we loved it. The problem was the rest of the theater was like not into it at all. So it was just me and my two friends just like laughing our heads off, and everyone else just kind of like looking around like, and I'm like, come on guys, this is great, get into it, you know. But we need more like good studio comedies like that.
That's a good one. Yeah, the beach scene was great. Out of nowhere, it was like, okay, this is great, this is happening, that's fantastic. That's great. So you saw that one in theater. So does that make the list of best?
Not necessarily. Only because the rest of the crowd wasn't. I mean, it was fun for me and my friends. Like we left, we were like, that was awesome. Everyone else wasn't as into it. I think the last one I'll talk about would be Parasite. Ooh. When I saw Parasite in the theater, the only thing that I knew about it going into it was that it's one movie and then something happens and it's a completely different movie. Yeah. And like I knew it was supposed to be this big, scary, like epic thriller. And I remember watching the first half being like, I'm laughing. Like this is funny. Yeah. Like this is hilarious. And then just like the moment when everything changed. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it. I know it's been out for a while, but like
watch it.
When the moment when everything changes, the theater's mood just like I remember I described to my friends, it was like just like a snap and everything changed. Like the whole crowd went silent for the rest of the movie, and it was just like everyone was locked in on it. It was so cool.
That one, it's funny. Like all these movies that you saw in theaters, I saw at home. Like also kind of like in the same reaction, but by myself. But that's one reason why I love movie theaters, and I wish that they succeed. Is that like you can enjoy a movie just as much, maybe not just as much, because it's that crowd, the communal experience of laughing, crying, shouting that I appreciate. Again, I don't like people who talk in the movies, people who sing in the movies, and like there's a time and place. For example, Avengers, Endgame. Any of the Avengers movies opening weekend, you're expecting people to cheer, yell, whatever. But like there are other instances where people are just being obnoxious and like inconsiderate with other
filming
people. Filming and like, okay, this like we don't need this. But I will say, Avengers. Speaking about snapping, snapping in an instant. Avengers Endgame. Infinity War was great, but Endgame was also fantastic. That was like a roller coaster. People like screaming and enjoying every second of it. That was also like a great experience.
My friends and I, we went to see that the day after it came out, like that Friday afternoon, and there were 13 of us. We literally filled out the back row, and it was just like, it was such a great experience because everyone in the row was all into it together, and I mean, the whole theater was, but being around all my friends like that and like The Last Jedi, getting to see that the opening night. I know that's like kind of a controversial take, like not everyone likes that movie. I have a soft spot for it because the first night I saw it was so awesome. It was like me and a bunch of my buddies that I just met in college, and we all got tickets and we all saw it together, and like we went back to our dorm room and just like debated it for like 3 hours. Like it was just such a great experience.
That's funny. Yeah, Jamie and I are infamously at odds with The Last Jedi. The thing is, again, not to go on too many tangents, but so the Force Awakens, it was a good soft reboot. It
was fun.
Reintroduction into the Star Wars universe. It wasn't great, but I enjoyed it. It was fun for what it was, and I'm a fan of Rian Johnson. And going into the second one, people were saying this is going to turn, Star Wars on its head. There are going to be big changes, big swings, and I'm like, I'm all for it. Yeah. I went in with an open mind. I remember, like 30, not even like 20 minutes in, I am not enjoying this, and I remember thinking in my head like, oh my God, like I'm not enjoying this. And I went in with an open heart, with an open mind, willing to accept big changes and big swings. But some of these things were happening. I'm like, I am not enjoying this at all. Like, this is terrible. And it just continued down that path. And I'm like, oh. And then no one talks about The Last Skywalker or whatever one.
That was so. I actually was. I was like, I went into that, tried to go into that with an open mind, and like halfway through, I was just angry. I'm like, why am I here? Like, oh man, like this is just not what I wanted. And I agree. I think The Last Jedi, it hasn't aged as well as I would have hoped so, but like I still treasure that first night when like everything that happened was awesome. But yeah, I mean that's just a classic experience.
Yeah, my last movie with one of my most cherished experiences in the movie theater is Borat. Have you seen Borat?
Yeah, I'm sure you have. I've seen Borat.
So Borat came out in 2006. So at the time I was 16, and that's another movie where like the whole movie is ridiculous, over the top, gut busting, laughing. But I remember specifically when the entire movie theater lost its collective minds, and that was when the naked bed fight scene, and the naked fight scene, and like they're like rolling over each other, and like everybody was like gasping and like just gasping with delight, and like people were screaming, people were jumping, and then that fight continued outside into like the lobby, and it just like that. I just remember just like I've never been in a movie theater like this wild, where like all hell broke loose in the best possible way.
That seems like the type of movie that would do that.
Yeah. So that was great. I remember the scene also with when he was singing the national anthem at the rodeo. People were just like again, it's a movie theater experience that I will never probably have again. And I hope to, but like we said, like they don't make movies like that oftentimes anymore.
Yeah.
I do have a problem with when people say like, oh, you can't make Tropic Thunder ever again. Like, can you? It's like, you can, because like people are like, oh, you can't, you know, like Robert Downey Jr. quote wore blackface, but the character in them, it all matters about context. And in that context, like, yeah, you can absolutely do that same joke and do this whole premise again. It's if the joke and the premise is set up properly, you could run with many of these like raunchy or like crossing the line jokes and have it be funny and it be like quote okay or whatever, because like people say you can't do it again. You can.
Yeah.
Just take the risk.
And a lot of it depends on your intent, you know, like how are you doing it? Are you punching up? You punching down? You know, like that's like that's a scapegoat for a lot of like comedians in the sense of just like, you know, oh, like you can't do that anymore. It's like, well, you're just not doing it right. Yeah. You know, like there are plenty of people that do it and do it well.
Yeah. Whenever people say like you can't joke about this, that, or whatever, like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is still running. It's still a very popular show, and they do that every single week. And like, yes, they can and they do, but you know, people want, I don't know, like, that's a whole other topic. But like, that's Borat and Tropic Thunder are movies that we need to see like a resurgence in that type of like over the top, grandiose, stupid humor.
We need those those mid-budget comedies. Bring those back. Bring those back. We need another, like The Other Guys, I feel like was the last one of those that I remember really coming out.
That was
that's
really
one
good.
of my favorites.
That was funny. That was a good one. The first like 5 minutes, it's hilarious.
It's one of the most quoted movies in my family. Like my mom and I will just see each other and quote it to each other all the time.
That's funny. I love it. Let's see. Well, any other theatrical experiences, favorite ones?
The last one I'll mention is when I got to see Dune 2 for a second time. The first time I saw it was just was like the normal showing of it, but the second time I saw it, it was in IMAX, and my girlfriend and I, we were in the last row of the first like section. Mm-hmm. So we weren't like looking like, you know, we weren't like craning our necks, but the entire view we had was just the screen, and like, you know, being in IMAX, like it's already so immersive, but like I felt so immersed in that. Like I literally at times I wanted to get up and just be like, yeah, because it's just one of those movies where like it made me really appreciate, like, this is why we have movie theaters. This is why we have IMAX, like, to tell stories like this and to give you that experience to where you can, like, you live and die by every moment of the movie, and like just the maximalism and the expanse of it all were just so special.
You're like, worm, just take me.
People used to make fun of me here because I would always be like, you gotta see Dune. You gotta see Dune. And I'm like, oh my God, Kyle, I'm not gonna go see it. I'm like, no, you have to see it, and you have to see it in IMAX.
Did you get the Dune popcorn bucket?
Oh my God, I wanted it so bad.
But the funny thing is, when the SNL did a joke about it, I didn't know it was a real thing, and then like in the song they're like, "This is a real thing." And then you Google it, like, "Oh my God, it is! It's a real thing." That's
I remember
hilarious.
watching that sketch live, and like when they got to that, my friends and I all lost our minds because it was the Iowa Debris episode. So we were all watching it live because we love her.
Yeah,
and we
Dorchester
native. Like, oh my
God,
God, shout out Boston.
Yeah, that's so funny. Dune. I can't wait for Dune 3.
Yeah.
I don't know. I forgot what they're going to call it. Part 3, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that it's like supposed to be roughly based on the Dune Messiah, but I don't know if it's going to be called that.
I'm looking forward to that. That looks so. I love that.
Cinema.
Again,
cinema.
Yeah, Dune, the first one came out during the pandemic, so you had to watch it like on HBO Max or something. I remember seeing it, but like, yeah, if you can, go watch it.